Joe Biden is going full speed ahead with his cabinet. Yesterday, we talked about 3 selections: Secretary of State, National Security Advisor, and Ambassador to the United Nations. Today, we have 3 more, actually 4 more to tell you about, which I will do momentarily. And as great as it is to see Joe Biden do this, it is also fascinating to watch the car crash of Donald Trump just being so triggered by Joe Biden moving ahead and selecting his cabinet. Yesterday, when I told you about 3 of Joe Biden's selections, I mentioned some tweets that Donald Trump sent over the weekend about how mad he is that Joe Biden is moving ahead. As Joe Biden continues to make selections, Donald Trump continues to tweet, despite Donald Trump having effectively conceded the race by telling the GSA to move forward with the transition. Donald Trump tweeting, "In certain swing states, there were more votes than people who voted, and in big numbers." Now, since Rudy Giuliani has said that's actually a bit of an exaggeration. Trump going on to say, "Does that not really matter? Stopping poll watchers, voting for unsuspecting people, fake ballots, and so much more. Such egregious conduct, we will win." And with every announcement from Joe Biden, another tweet from Donald Trump claiming he will win. So we now have the privilege, and I really consider it that after 4 years of playing defense and nonsense every day from this administration, we are starting to get back into meaty and substantive politics, selections of people who are actually qualified to be in the positions for which they are being selected. And let's review where we are so far with Joe Biden's choices. Of course, Vice President Kamala Harris, that we knew. She will be the first female president or vice president. And a very interesting selection, one that in some ways progressives are fearful of, in some ways progressives are welcoming. We know about Kamala Harris. We knew about Joe Biden, rather's chief of staff selection, Ronald Klain, who will be a very boring chief of staff. He will be scandal-free, and I expect him to last a while, in significant contrast to what we saw in the Trump administration. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, we spoke about yesterday. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, we spoke about yesterday, and Ambassador to the United Nations Linda Thomas Greenfield, we also spoke about that yesterday. Interestingly, after Donald Trump sort of demoted Ambassador to the UN and pushed it out of the National Security Council, Joe Biden will be re-elevating Ambassador to the UN to a cabinet-level role. It will be part of the National Security Council. I think that's important. It shows that you are taking seriously the relationship to the United Nations. Okay, we knew all of that yesterday. New selection from Joe Biden as the cabinet is filled out. Treasury Secretary will be Janet Yellen. Now, Janet Yellen was previously the chair of the Federal Reserve, and she will also be the first ever woman running the Department of the Treasury. Now, you know that I am not an identity politics guy. I want someone who is qualified, and there is no way to argue that Janet Yellen is unqualified. And it is powerful and inspiring and interesting that she will also be the first woman in that position. She is going to get a fragile economy in the midst of coronavirus with high unemployment. Almost certainly, Yellen will be at the center of a second coronavirus relief bill, which we have every belief that Joe Biden, as president, is going to try to put in place. She will have a massive undertaking that she will be walking into on day one, and likely even before day one, and she will be tested right away. Now, in terms of Yellen for markets will likely do well as a result of this. Markets early today liking this selection. Yellen is a known entity already. And of course, for those who are on the right and were worried about, socialism, Biden, the socialist, the communist, the selection of Janet Yellen, we'll talk about the progressive reaction, but the selection of Janet Yellen, if you are in any way connected to reality, should confirm that there is no socialism or communism going on here. Meanwhile, there are lots of progressives who are okay with Janet Yellen. She has gone after corporate power in the past. She went after Wells Fargo during the fiasco years. She's not an ideologue. And at least as far as Joe Biden is likely to pursue the economic agenda he ran on, Janet Yellen is not the type of person who is likely to get in the way of any of it. It will still be up to Biden to actually pursue it. Some elements of it will be affected by whether or not Democrats take the Senate. There are many ifs, ands, and buts, but Janet Yellen is not someone who will get in the way of any of what Joe Biden wants to do that he ran on, much of which was at least acceptable to progressives. Okay, we'll talk more about Janet Yellen in the future. Another very interesting selection, Secretary of Homeland Security, will be Alejandro Mayorkas. First Latino in this position, also a Jewish man who has taken very seriously the issue of antisemitism. Will be very interesting to see him take that head on as Secretary of Homeland Security. What the policy questions will be right away include, what does he do about family separation and the caging of children? Not trivial things that will be sorted out by the individual in this position. A very interesting choice. Director of National Intelligence will be Avril Haines, will be the first woman in history in that position. How does she clean up this fiasco of lack of trust in the intelligence community as a result of 4 years of Donald Trump slamming them? She has her work cut out. Climate czar. This is a very interesting position. John Kerry will be climate czar. Now, merely having a climate and environmental czar is a move in the right direction. Kerry is super smart, one of the people I met earlier on in hosting the show. This position will be on the National Security Council. That's important, recognizing that climate is a national security issue. This is a really great thing. Now, one other thought. There are really interesting identity stories here, but absent the identity stories, there are all qualified people in these positions. And even folks on the right who are not lunatics are saying, we find that a lot of these choices are too far left, but every single one of them is qualified. Now, in addition to that, there are interesting racial and gender stories to be told here. And I don't think that it is playing identity politics to recognize that. We're going to do deep dives into the politics of this cabinet once it's fully selected. Remember that these positions are set for Senate approval. They depend on Senate approval. If Republicans end up controlling the Senate, they are going to put up roadblocks for Joe Biden for at least some of these positions. It is conceivable that if Republicans really want to obstruct, Joe Biden may have no choice but to use interim or acting appointments to get around Senate confirmation. Remember that Republicans have been going on and on about Obama sat on all of these, or rather the Democratic Senate under Obama for those couple of years, blocked all of these selections. We are going to very quickly see whether Republicans are going to do the exact same thing. The upside right now is that normal, non-QAnon, non-fascist, non-ideological extremist lunatic types are rapidly set to be in charge of the country just 8.5 weeks from now. That's a really important thing. Last thought on cabinet, and then we're going to take a quick break. Anti-Semitism is already going crazy. Because of the selections. There are some Jewish folks who are going to be part of Joe Biden's cabinet and staff. Ronald Klain, his chief of staff, is a Jewish guy. Kamala Harris's husband is Jewish. He will have no formal role, but anti-Semites don't care about that. Janet Yellen is a Jewish woman. Alejandro Mayorkas is a Jewish Cuban guy. The usual suspects are already very upset about the number of Jews here, and we are already seeing that boil over in some of the right-wing enclaves of the internet. The groups that track anti-Semitism online are already aware of it. And that, listen, we'll have time to talk about that, but that is rearing its ugly head once again. Let's take a quick break. Let me know your thoughts about some of these choices. I'm on Twitter at @Pakman. I got a bunch of emails, people saying, David, you sound sick today. No, I'm just at a different different studio, different location for the Thanksgiving week, using a different mic. I sound a little different. I'm not sick as of now. Could wake up sick tomorrow, but I'm not sick. We have not lost the studio. We have not been kicked out. The show is not circling the drain. I am just elsewhere this week. And we have a very, very busy week of shows upcoming. If you love feeding your intellectual curiosity, but you're always struggling to find the time, check out one of my all-time favorite apps called Blinkist. Blinkist lets you consume an entire book on your way home from work. They take thousands of popular nonfiction books, condense each one into text or audio that you can get through in just 15 minutes, and you get all of the important core ideas and information from that book. It's perfect if you don't have enough time to do all the reading you want to do, or if you just want to sample a book before you buy the entire thing. I recently read A Brief History of Time, of course, by the great Stephen Hawking. This is a book that I have been aware of for so long, and other things got in the way, and it was fantastic to check it out on Blinkist. Blinkist has books on politics, philosophy, science. They have 27 different nonfiction categories, and a subscription is only about $8 a month, and you get the entire library. But you can try it totally free and get 25% off a subscription when you go to Blinkist.com/Pakman. I've put the link right underneath this video.